needed that little break. As I was saying, it's taken me until now to understand that no amount of thinking, no amount of asking other people, getting people's 2 cents, getting people's advice, looking for all this external validation and reason to come back and be here. It served no purpose, because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to get things done. You're the one that does it. You're the one that can take action. You're the only one that can do that for yourself. And over this time that I've been off, over these past 2 years, I've come up with so many excuses. I've created so many like castles of thoughts and fixations of the way I'm gonna come back, and it's gonna be the right way, and it's just gonna be more business orientated, and everything's gonna be so much clean and have such a perfect direction, and people are gonna know exactly why they're watching and following me, and I'm gonna all this garbage, which only led me to do nothing. Because that's another thing about all this self-sabotaging behavior, is that it leads you to nothing. It leads you to no action. And one day it's here, and then one day it goes. And 1 week you're motivated, and 1 week you're not, right? And that's why in the past year, when I chose to move, I said I'm not going to get a gym membership. I'm not going to do that, because clearly I'm not seeing what I'm doing wrong. Clearly this has become an escape. It has become a pleasure-seeking routine that I do. And that's my way of escaping from my reality. So when I moved into my new apartment, I chose not to get a membership. And actually the park that I'm in right now is where I spent most of my winters when I wasn't working, doing push-ups. It's right over there. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of push-ups. I built up from 100 all the way to over 1,000. And I remember it was on New Year's. It was on New Year's where I chose to challenge myself and do over 1,000 push-ups. And it took me around, no, it took me all day. It took me all day. I just really picked it up towards the end when the fireworks were going off and everything. And I remember a cop pulled up and she said, "You know that the park's closed, right?" And I remember telling her, I was just like, "Can I just finish doing my set?" Out of all things a young man could be doing on New Year's Eve. I guess she chose to come to me. But I had no feel for it, because she's just doing her job. But now, ever since I started posting on social media again, I've gotten a membership. So now I'm at day 5 of going back to the gym. And something about it this time it just feels right. I feel like I'm not a feather in the wind anymore. I feel like I'm actually in control. In 2020, I moved back to Italy from Canada. And as for me and a lot of other people, that was a very difficult year. I often think, like, why did that happen when it happened? Because it was at a point in my life where I thought I knew exactly where I was going in life. I felt like I had absolute control over what I was doing and what I was showing. And when March came around, it all went away. And that's a period where I was challenged again. Very much like when I was first starting out at the gym. Unknown. What am I gonna do? Especially now that I have, at that point, I think I had around 30,000 followers on Instagram, about 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So what am I gonna bring to people? So in my head, I was like, well, first things first, I'm not gonna give up. That's one thing. I'm not gonna be the person to not work in this time. I'm not gonna do that. But not so much for pride, more for myself and my own well-being. Because I knew that hard times were coming, were ahead of us. I knew that as time went on, and as the information kept spreading out, and the TVs told you X, Y, and Z, and everything just kept getting postponed, I knew that I needed to grab myself onto something. And that was creating content. And so I tried to make something out of nothing, essentially. I didn't know anything about working out at home. I knew nothing. I didn't know anything about what I was going to do. Because up until that point, all I showed to people was me at the gym, me in school, me eating, me living this kind of well, I guess you can say a normal life. So what am I gonna do now? Now that I'm in nature? I was also living with my grandparents because we had all moved back together as a family because we realized that my grandfather needed support because he was not doing well with his diseases, and so we all came together, and that was a difficult moment for, I think, all of us. For me, my brother, my sister, my mother, her husband, my grandmother, my grandfather, and the fact that we were all going through life in our own ways, and we all ended up together. And when you're in things, you think that they're so terrible. When you're going through them, you think that they're so terrible and they're so tough because it's new, it's change. And everyone adopts to change differently. And a lot of frustration comes out. But only later you realize how special those times were. So as we're going through the lockdown, I'm posting these videos, I'm posting these pictures, I'm trying. So then once we come out, I'm much more skinnier. I'm not as big, I'm not as buff, but I was like, okay, well, this is really annoying that I'm gonna have to start over, but let's do it. And so I keep posting, I keep growing my Instagram and my YouTube. I keep posting videos and pictures, and I'm kind of getting lost at this point with what I'm doing, because at that point my mentality and my mindset is to get back to where I was, because up until that point I could never even fathom when I was in Canada of being in a position of having to get back my gains. Because I remember seeing so many people in the gym, so many guys would come into the gym and they were like, I have to get back to it, because maybe they'd go out drinking, or they, just live that type of life. So they were always in this constant going hard for 4 weeks and then drinking, then having to get back to where they were, and that takes a week and all that. And I could never understand why you would do that to why someone would do that to themselves. And I could never understand why drinking and having fun was better than improving yourself. I could never understand that. Never. I never could get my mind around that. So here I am, and I'm in that position where there's been time off at the gym, and I have to build myself back up, so that's a new challenge for me. I'm in new gyms now. There's new culture, there's a new language. Of course, I'm in Italy. Things are a lot more old school. Everything's a lot older. So it took me a while to find a decent gym. And that was frustrating. Not to mention also the difference in weights. There it's kgs, so kilos. Over in North America, it's pounds. So it's getting used to all that, and I'm sure all the gym bros can understand where I'm coming from here. So that was another challenge, and the fact that I had to learn how to communicate not only in another language, but you need to adapt to the culture that you're in and the way that people talk. And you need to adapt, and you need to get comfortable with that, and you need to build on that, which is really, really hard after especially being locked in your house for 7 months. So I struggled a lot with confidence, but something that I did not shy away from was doing what I needed to do. And I did it scared. I did it embarrassed. It was so embarrassing for me to pick up the camera at the gym and speak in another language, which was English, and just be able to just do that. It was so difficult, and I did it. I tried and I did it. And perhaps I wasn't actually being myself, but I'm still proud of what I did. I'm still proud that at the time, I think that was the bravest thing I could do. Because it also takes a certain degree of bravery when it comes to putting yourself out there like that. You're not just putting on your clothes and going to the gym, getting your workout in and going home. It's like you need to make sure you're getting all the right angles. You need to make sure you're looking good. You need to make sure you're communicating the right thing. You need to make sure the angles look good. You want to look good, obviously. You want to have a good workout. And there's just all this that goes into it, which isn't easy. It isn't easy. And all this while performing under people looking at you, and people staring at you, and people judging you, and people maybe not liking what you're doing. People maybe not supporting what you're doing at all. But you have to do it anyways. And the gyms maybe even don't want you to record. Oh, and you can't do this, you can't do that. And when I got to Italy, it was really much strict and all that. Like you couldn't it's almost like you couldn't have energy. Like you couldn't have like a high level of energy in the gym. Like I couldn't be passionate. I couldn't like slam the weight a little bit. I couldn't have some fucking test. It's like they didn't want that. And everyone in the rooms didn't want that. It was all like very, because like I said, it's more old school there. So it's not as accepted. So that's more stuff that I was dealing with, that I had to accept and I had to adapt. So I would say as I'm doing all this, I think my vision and my purpose is getting lost a little bit. I am starting to get a little lost in the likes. I'm starting to get lost in the comments and what people are telling me. I'm starting to get a little too lost in the things that don't actually matter. And so I wasn't leading with purpose. I wasn't leading with intent. I was just leading with, well, I post every day and I post every week on YouTube and I post shirtless pictures, and it became something more about approval. I was looking for validation and approval. And I was still able to build because, social media rewards people that are consistent and people that, look the part. So October came around and all of a sudden we're all back locked into our houses. And as soon as I thought I was getting somewhere with it, as soon as I thought I was getting more clear-headed with my vision and my purpose, I felt like I was getting closer, that thing just got slapped right in the face and so hard. So we're back into the house. And I remember having a a conversation with my mom, asking her if she could help me, investing some money into me with the gym, with building a home gym. And I remember being so scared to ask that because it was my grandfather's house, it was my mom's house, it was the basement. Like, I looked at it as in, like, it's theirs, right? And obviously I didn't have any money. And so I felt a little guilty asking my mom to invest 1,500 euros for me to continue doing what I'm doing, because I just really felt like this was my goal, this was my purpose. So she agreed to help me out. And I built the gym in the basement, and I put the mirrors up, I got the squat rack, I got dumbbell, got a barbell and everything, and I built that up. It took me about a week to do that. And I remember once I built it up, I couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't believe that my bed was, like, my room and my bed where I slept was just upstairs, and the gym was that close to me. And so it was so overwhelming that I actually didn't even work out for a month after I built that gym. And so I got really skinny, and I lost a lot of my gains. But then something snapped in me, and I was like, okay, I can't give up. I have to keep going. I have to keep going, I have to keep posting, I have to keep trying, because giving up won't speed up the process. So again, posting these videos, posting these pictures, but we're back, we're locked in the house again. So I feel like I'm starting over. And talking about this isn't easy. Like, it's still frustrating to me to this day, because every time I talk about this, all I want to do is just move on to the next thing. Like, get to the point, Uriah. Why are we here? Why are we talking about this? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to do with this? Every time I start talking about stuff like this, and all that is just me wanting to control everything. And all that is just me, it's just me learning that I need to let go of that. And maybe you have this issue too, that you want to hang on to everything, but you have to let it go. Things are going at the exact pace they need to go. You trying to control them is interrupting that flow and interrupting that pace. So another 7 months go by, and then we're back out. We're back out into the world again. Things are a lot different this time, and you can really feel it, especially because now there's this idea that if you didn't get the jab, you weren't a good person. You didn't care about your family. You didn't care about older people. You didn't care. So this was being pushed on to us. And there you could really feel that the world shifted. So being the problem-solving, solution-seeking young man that I am, I found a way to get around it. And I found a way to get my ass back in a public gym. But again, we're back from scratch, because even though I was training at home during this time, I wasn't eating properly, I wasn't training hard, I was really just doing the movements, and I wasn't even getting close to failure. But I was posting and I was being consistent with the videos and showing this just this idea of what an in-shape person does, which is just me being clouded. I'm just clouded. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm just doing, if I'm just being real. So we're back in the gym, we're working out and everything again, summertime, and there was a moment where my sister invited me to go out with her. And I am super against going out. I don't go out at all. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any of that stuff. So like in my mind, I'm very much against going out and getting out there. And now I've lived at the point where I'm talking to you, which is after the second time we've been locked down. I'm very much against it, and my mind is built on the fact that I don't do that. I don't live like that because it serves you no good. But at the same time, all you're doing is going to the gym and creating content, which that isn't really healthy, because you have to do other things too, right? You have to live a little bit. You have to socialize. And I was very much antisocial. And I was very much scared of going out there as well. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to be seen, because that was another thing, is that people that knew who I was, because like I said, I didn't just move to Italy. I used to live in Italy when I was a kid too. So all the people that knew who I was saw that they knew that I had some fame. I had some clout on Instagram. I had some status, but I didn't want to be seen by anyone. I didn't want anybody to see me. I didn't want anybody to interrupt me. I didn't want to go back to that, because that's where a lot of my anger and my trauma started. It started with a lot of these people that I once knew. At one point, I felt like I was being stalked every time I went out. And all it was really just paranoia. I felt like everybody that was under the age of 30 that kind of looked at me with this eye of like, who is this guy? I felt like they knew who I was. And that made me very defensive. It made me want to close up even more. So let's fast forward back to what I was saying about my sister inviting me for a night out. So I go out and I run into my old friend, and he might be watching this. And it was so good to see him. It was so good to be able to speak freely. And realize that he made me realize that the world wasn't against me. He made me realize that there's absolutely no point in trying to control everything all the time. And he really made me realize that there's nothing wrong with being honest. Actually, it's very much empowering when you're being honest, when you're being truthful, when you're not constantly hiding from things and lying and getting it with your little ways around things. And I was operating very much from that point of view since I moved back to Italy. So I started going out more. I started partying, I guess you can say. Still going to the gym and everything. But I started going out more because it just felt right. It felt right to just be out there again. My confidence was building. I felt good about myself. I wasn't as insecure as I thought I was, as I really envisioned. I wasn't scared. I had to take a break.